Hello, my friends. I'm Rick. You're not. Welcome to the channel. Welcome to the channel. All 10 subscribers. At least half of you guys are visiting on a regular basis, or at least clicking enough to say, oh, I want to check the video out, and then click off of it. Hey, I'm awesome and stoked. Anybody that sees this stuff, I've got a couple videos that actually got some hits on them, but most of these are dead in the water. But you know, it is what it is. Mostly about a chance for me to rant and rave. So we're talking about gun violence and gun safety, and this is a topic that we could talk about every damn day for the rest of our lives, and probably, never see any into it. I'll talk about three personal experiences of mine. So when I was a younger man, I have a number of relatives that, had more than their share of a gun, guns in the house. I can honestly say I actually had one relative who was significantly into gun collecting, that he had a bloody room full of them. And I don't mean a small amount either. I think he had enough in there to outfit the entire city block and then some of pretty robust firepower. And, just to be fun, he made sure he had more than enough ammo to support all of them for, 100 freaking years. I can't tell you how much of his personal resources went into that stuff over his lifetime, but I have to know it was quite considerable. When he passed away and his family sold it off, they got a nice tidy chunk out of it. And there were quite a few that were actual collectible type of stuff. None of them were spectacularly worth a whole lot, but there were still some of value, some that had some age to them. The rest of them were your more common off the shelf, in some cases junk by some people's estimates, because they were cheaper than average. But he had, like I said, he had quite a lot, and it was far more. You could never use a tenth of what he had for any purpose whatsoever other than to have them. That said, my uncle Buck, we was sitting over at when I was a very young person. We were all visiting their house, and he was showing off a rifle to my dad. And as far as I know, Uncle Buck was not intoxicated and was not under the influence of anything else at that point of the day. But he was pretty animated, and he was waving this gun around. And by accident, quote accident, twice, aimed it generally in the direction of my dad. And my dad, Marine Corps veteran, served in Korea. Was a Marine drill instructor for a short while. Better than he did, if my understanding, was 20 years. 20 years in the service. You don't point a gun at that kind of guy unless you plan to get it shoved up your ass. And my dad was polite the first time and pointed it out to him that that's just not kosher to do. And the second time he did it, he fluently said, you point that again at me and I'm going to shove it up your ass. And my uncle was a bit confused at that moment, because he's like, well, what are you worried about? It's not loaded. Well, it's not the point. You don't go waving around a gun, whether it's loaded or not, at people. Why do you not do that? What common sense thing says this is not a good idea to be waving this damn gun around? It just holds, you're talking about how great this gun is, how great a deal you got on it, whatever the hell it was, and you're not thinking about what you're doing. You're just casually all over the place with it. To prove that it was unloaded, my uncle pointed it up toward the corner of his living room and pulled the trigger, and lo and behold, it went off. Went off, startled him, scared my aunt and my mom and all of us pretty bad, like, holy crap, what the hell? And my dad was just like, that's why he's F and F and F and F. He said, I swear to God, you ever have another gun in your hand when I come in your house, I'm putting you in the morgue. And I believe my dad when he said shit like that. That's an interesting conundrum here. My father never owned a gun. Marine Corps veteran, served in Korea, combat vet, became a drill instructor, was even a clerk, was even a Raider O'Reilly for a number of years, because he learned how to type. I'm just saying, never owned a firearm in his life outside of the service. Never wanted it. Never wanted one. Never wanted to have them in the house. When we did do hunting and stuff, he never went. He didn't like hunting. He grew up on a small Iowa farm with a shitload of siblings. He had like 15 kids in his family. Uh, they did a lot of stuff. And I don't know, I know Dad never talked about a lot of his past, did not talk about a lot of his growing up. A lot of it was pretty rough. But guns was never something that ever came up. Funny that. I always thought that was interesting. So, second story revolves around something in that venue. So, when I was a little older younger man, I was in my early teens. I think it was 13, 14, 15 years old when I was became an avid hunter for a number of years. And we would go out, and my uncles and my cousins would get together, and be 3, 4, 6, depending on how many people we could get together, and we'd go out a day like today. It's second day of pheasant season in Iowa, and I'll tell you, a whole lot of people that I used to know are probably out there hunting pheasants right now. So the average, 2 or 3 shotguns, maybe a pistol kind of stuff, maybe a hunting rifle. None of them ever had AR-15s or MAC-10s or anything remotely looking like something unless it was a collector's item. They had no reason to have it, no need to have it. And most of my uncles are all veterans of the military, all well-trained, well-educated from the military's perspective on the handling of storage and proper use of firearms. More importantly, they're trained when not to use the firearm. That's something they don't talk about too much about that. But any of y'all, you service vets, any of y'all went through basic, advanced infantry training and or whatever all the MOs and crap they call them down today. Wasn't some of that part of that education and that learning curve that we were all put in front of, that you had to acknowledge when and why to utilize a gun? Because what damn well, you've went around them enough, there's always that guy. There's always that one guy who doesn't take the damn thing serious until something happens. You see bits and pieces in various movies of people doing shit, and then some senior CO says, "I'll kick your ass." That's real shit, dude. That's legitimate shit. My dad would have been that kind of guy. Hardcore Marine to his goddamn death, to his deathbed. And I'll tell you what, I don't give a shit if Chesty Puller himself showed up in front of me and pointed a freaking gun at somebody. My dad had dressed him down for it. I don't give a damn who you wouldn't give a damn what your rank was. The hell is wrong with you? Because that is not the sort of thing you're supposed to do. And there's a lot of people in this country that do not get any sort of training whatsoever. They just get guns. They get guns, and they have no real need for them. They're not really scared of the neighbors. They're not really worried that, the neighbors' chihuahuas are going to invade their yard. They're getting this because they're being fed a line of bullshit the end of the world's coming of some form or another, and then there's some truth to that. It is what it is. Now, my last personal take, and this is why when I swore off firearms forever. So in my early 20s, when I was 20. Exactly when I was 20. My ex-wife and I got married at 18, right out of high school, all for the wrong damn reasons, and we spent the next 2 years tormenting the shit out of each other, and eventually it ended up heading for a divorce. And took me a year and a half to pay for the damn thing, and we had all kinds of problems in between. Finally got it paid, finally got the divorce. And I was trying to come to terms. I had a lot of personal emotional baggage growing up. We're not here to get into that. You're not my therapist. I don't have a damn therapist. Couldn't afford one if I did or wanted to. The point though is that I didn't think life was worth living too much after that. I really, really did not think a whole hell of a lot about a shitload of stuff at that point, other than I wanted to die, and I had a shotgun. As a matter of fact, I had a sawed-off 20 gauge because I was a Mad Max fan, and I thought, ooh, that's what if you got to have personal home defense, that's what you want. You want a scatter gun that you don't have to worry about too much about aiming at anything in the middle of the night. You get woke up and you're hungover, or you're freaked out, and somebody's coming through your window. All you need to do is level the thing in that direction, and pull the damn trigger. Somebody's getting hit. Hopefully it ain't everybody else in the room with you. So anyway, I sat down in the basement of my folks' house with a loaded shotgun in my hand, 2 steps away from pulling the trigger. And the only thing that kept me from doing it was I didn't really want to die. Deep down, most people don't want to die. The second part was I didn't want my mom to find me there. The idea of my mom having to find me and clean up the mess that was what kind of woke me up. And then something that my Uncle Buck told me years and years ago kept coming back to me, and still comes back to me, to my mind every now and then, that no matter how bad things get, no matter how bad life seems to be, no matter how bad life is being to you, take a moment to consider just how bad it could really be. How worse could it get? It can get a whole lot worse than what it is. And for some people, it's hard to see that, especially when you're already you don't see how things get any worse than they are. It's hard, right? So we have this whole society mindset that goes on about doing guns and gun control and gun safety. And Piers Morgan said something the other night that really stuck into my mind, and he's right. The problem here is that we need gun safety. We need to examine gun safety rules, not gun control. Where it's a given that part of the American psyche is the ownership of firearms. This is why there are so many firearms in the country. Now, the damn numbers have considerably grown in the last 10 years, and 5 years or so, in part because of a lot of the rhetoric and bullshit being spoon-fed and fire-hosed at the average American these days. So, they're this talk about they want to take away your guns. They're going to take away your guns. The libs are going to get your guns. Okay. Maybe there's some truth to that. And maybe there's some reality here, too, that the argument that everybody makes about the Second Amendment is flawed in a lot of ways, like a lot of things in our Constitution, in our Bill of Rights. It's conjecture and of opinion. How do we interpret what's being said there? Well, the lines in the Constitution are very it's very thin. The Second Amendment is very direct, and it does nothing about you and I owning assault rifles and handguns and having an arsenal in our house. None of it's covered by the Second Amendment. Not one look of it. That's how we've interpreted to mean, and nobody's made an official amendment to the amendment. Okay, so we're not going to eliminate guns. And part of me believes wholeheartedly in that Second Amendment. You hear this from a lot of the right-wing Republicans, especially these MAGA types, and they get on a hot mic and they don't really think. They're not thinking. They're just talking they're talking what's in their head, which is what you should. This is why these impromptu or these on the spot interviews that these people do of people at rallies and meetings and think that are important, because in a lot of times you're listening to the raw truth, the raw emotion, the raw feelings of the individuals who are being interviewed. And if you listen to what they're saying, not why they're saying it, but what they're saying, you can start to see the parallels of stuff. So a whole lot of people, like I said, grew up like I did, believing that the only reason that the United States government hasn't turned us into a theocracy or an oligarchy or a damn monarchy or any other archies out there is because of the fact that the average American has enough firepower to make that not happen. So it's the same analogy when you hear these types going on about the Civil War. We're going to have a Civil War. There's going to be a Civil War. That's because a lot of these people have been spoon-fed and fire-hosed all their lives that they're being screwed. And the only problem is that the people that are doing, the people who are screwing them over are also are quite adept at manipulating them into to looking at the boogeyman that's not the problem. You know, don't look at what I'm doing. Look at what he's doing. Ignore what I'm doing because he's doing something else. Well, that's just stupid. But that's the average American because somehow or another we can't see it. So we got what, 500 shootings now in this country to date, to this date, today in this year. We still have a month, 2 months left to go in this year. So how many? We got another 100 damn shootings before the year's out. Part of the problem, and we go back to this new Speaker of the House. Well, it's the family, the nuclear family has been crushed, and so many people are lost and distraught, and it's because they need God. If they had God in their family, in their life, God would prevent them from from doing things, terrible things. And if their mother had stayed home and washed dishes and tended to the house and took after them like good little mothers are supposed to do, if the women would just know their place in America. Think I'm bullshitting you, huh? Yeah, keep thinking that, Chuckles. This new Speaker of the House is far worse than anybody they could have put in that position at this point. You'd have been better putting damn frickin' that damn frickin' Soros guy or whatever in there. Not Soros, frickin' George, good old George, who's about to go to prison. It's funny how many Republicans tend to be on the short track for prison sentences these days. So far, I can only think of one Democrat that should be on a track for a prison cell. Mendez, you thief, and you sold your soul to the Egyptians, and you need to pay for it. Give a shit who you are, what party you belong to. Anyhow. Gun safety's the way to go. I mean, at the end of the day, Piers Morgan's right. I mean, all these European countries have considerable populations and don't have the gun violence that we do. They have violence and people still do gun shootings. It happens. They have people who have access to guns. That's true. Well, I mean, what about in Israel? Is the average Israeli been as armed to the teeth as the average American? How much more successful would Hamas been if half of their victims had been able to return fire on them on the spot? Does that make it a better thing or a worse thing? Because bullets don't know which direction, or bullets don't know what they're being shot at. So your bullets can hit things you didn't expect them to hit. And by default, your actions can generate far more lethal reactions to you because of what, just saying. The death count might have been hellishly higher on that 7th than it was. It had to have been, the Israelis been armed to the teeth like Americans are, I've been a strong proponent for that for my entire life. I honestly believe the only reason that nobody has ever successfully invaded the United States is in part because the American population has enough firepower to decimate most foreign armies that could come here. I mean, we don't have this significant high-end firepower, but that's what the military's for. But it's not for the lack of trying. I mean, there's advocates out there would allow you to own tanks and frickin' APCs, and I mean you can, as a collector you can own them. Although having a functioning Abrams tank is still not on the table from what I understand. But how many people have to die? We're not even talking the street thugs and the addicts that are offing each other in the city streets and in the alleyways and crap, taking more than their share of innocent bystanders out with them along the way. We're talking about average Joe Q Americans that have already having issues with coping skills and issues of all kinds of problems. And I'm not going to say that some of our morals have degenerated, because they have. All you got to do is look at the damn Republican Party's actions and justifications that they use to justify their actions to tell you that, you know what? I tell somebody like that, Mr. Speaker, Speaker Johnson, before you worry about the splinter in everybody else's eye, you might want to get that beam out of the GOP. The eyes of the GOP, because right now the GOP has no business pointing fingers at anybody. Yeah, you're a member of a very corrupt and a very deranged group of people right now. And the downside is this Speaker Johnson, you're right up there amongst them, which means you have no clue. You know, truly crazy people do not know they're crazy. This is what makes them really, truly dangerous because they do not understand that what they're thinking is not rational, or what they're thinking is the aspects of everything that they shouldn't be. You know, and then they believe it. Guys like this Mike Johnson, Speaker Johnson, he didn't drink the Kool-Aid, my friends. He brewed it. This is the guy that brews the Kool-Aid for other people to drink. Just keep that in mind too. So gun safety. Anybody can get an assault rifle today. Why? Why do you need an AR-15? I've fired plenty of assault rifles. I have fired some pretty heavy fire, versions of assault rifles too. I've fired a few antiques in my time. I've fired a Ma Deuce a couple times. I'm just saying. Yeah, there's something spectacular about all that stuff. There's something very powerful about these things. There's also something very sobering and terrifying about them too. And if you don't acknowledge that part too, that makes you 10 times more dangerous to you and everybody around you. Gun safety. When I was a kid, we have gun racks. Put the gun up in the rack. Common sense said you didn't leave it loaded. But there was always one loaded gun in the house. In all the households, my parents did not own guns. Dad, like I said, drill instructor, Marine Corps vet, veteran from Korea, would not own a gun. You know, I forget who it was. Somebody told me once. I remember where we were, and they said, you know, your dad. Somebody gave him shit about that once, and your dad flat out looked him straight in the eye and said, "If I need a gun, I'll take yours from you." That was my dad. My dad did not need to carry a gun because if you were stupid enough to come into his house, he would take your gun from you. And there was a lot of years there I was convinced he could do just that. When he got older and stuff, that wasn't quite the same thing. But the fact was, yeah, he was quite confident in how to handle himself and quite confident in the situation. He was always aware of the situation he was in. It was kind of freaky sometimes because he would notice things far faster than other people would, and he would notice details and stuff that you wouldn't think of, and it's because of that be observant, to observe things, know your situational awareness, understand, but more important, comprehend what you're seeing, because those things you might glance might be the difference between walking away from a situation or not in this day and age. I rarely go in public anymore. I don't. We can't afford to go out very much, so we do. Last year we've only been to 2 movies this year, or no, 1 movie this year. So my plan is to take my wife out on Christmas Day, like we have the last couple of years, and go see a movie. Aside from stopping at McDonald's now and then, we haven't been out to a restaurant since that time last year too. About $90 at a freaking Applebee's, about killed myself. Oh Jesus. I can't do that twice. So, we don't get out very much. But when I'm out, I pay attention. When I'm working, especially when I'm working at night, I go into some pretty, obscure areas. And that truck's loud and noisy, so people can walk right up behind you and you got earplugs in. You can literally get somebody to walk right up behind you and you wouldn't know it until they're there. And so I tend to be, my head's on a pivot just because it's habit. It's like driving the truck. When you're driving a commercial truck, your head's on a pivot. If you ever pay attention to those drivers, especially when they're driving through traffic in town, that head, they're constantly looking. They're checking their mirrors. They're checking the sides. They're checking forward. They're looking back. They're constantly checking. I'm constantly checking. I've learned hard lessons not to. That big mirror on the side of the truck is a huge blind spot. An entire semi can disappear behind that mirror. If you don't look forward to look behind the mirror to see past it, something, a bus or something could be coming right at your ass, and you could pull right out and start to pull out. You'd catch it because then your mirror with that blind spot would move, and then you would see it. Unless by dumb luck that thing's moving at the same time you're pulling up, because it's possible. It's happened to me. Scared the crap out of me. So it made me a lot more cautious about that sort of stuff. It's always on a pivot. Now, gun safety's a big part of it. And we didn't keep a lot of... Nowadays, you shouldn't keep your ammunition in the same damn room as your guns. A lot of kids get killed at home because somebody left a loaded gun around for them to get to. But the other side of it is they also left the ammunition around so the kid could get to that and load the gun. They should never been able to get to the gun in the first damn place. Even 30, 40 years ago, we knew that. You know, we were families pretty savvy about that sort of stuff, but there's a lot of people who are not. I have been in plenty of people's houses where the damn guns are just leaning up against the corner behind the couch. There's a pistol sitting there on the damn, the dogs are romping around, the kids are running around. There's a pistol sitting on the damn coffee table. Where's the brains in that? Hello? Yeah, and then we're back, like I said, we don't need assault rifles. You can do a hell of a lot of damage with a shotgun and a rifle, and pistols are more than sufficient. And truth is, anybody has any technical experience will tell you that a pistol is far more preferable in a personal defense situation in close quarters. Long arms and semi-automatic automatic weapons are meant for larger areas with more dispersal need for dispersal of bullets, and the fact that they're intended to kill people. You don't hunt people. You don't hunt deer or bear with an AR-15. Oh, you can, but they're a piss poor weapon for that. Anybody who's an avid hunter will tell you that is a terrible weapon for this, because it destroys the damn animal. It destroys the meat. It tears up so much stuff because their bullets are designed to do that, as opposed to, a 30-30 that will push a nice nasty hole right through your ass and a controlled exit on the back end. As that bullet's not spinning and flipping around and tearing up everything. Geez, think I knew what I'm talking about. What the hell do I know? All right. It ain't going to get better, America. It ain't going to get better until we make our politicians fix these problems. We have to force them to do it. And it's not enough to, because, the Democrats are no better than the Republicans when it comes to this, because the Democrats will thump their chest loudly and tout a bunch of crap and make a bunch of big deals about something, but then at the end of the damn day, they don't vote on nothing. They just don't get the vote, or there's insufficient vote, or they purposely, intentionally, determined that we're going to make this a consensus, so we have to have people from the other side too, and it just doesn't get enough votes. So unless America, when's enough going to be enough? That Republican representative there from the state of Maine, is the senator or the representative, he's changed his view on this. He's changed his view after this latest mass shooting. He's now an advocate of gun reform, of gun safety reform, and it would be interesting because this gets brought up. Oh, we've got all these laws and all. Yeah, we have a whole bunch of damn rules and regulations and laws already on this stuff, but they're badly enforced or not enforced at all, and they're not uniform. Each state's different. And then the arrogance gets embedded in people that they got this right to carry shit when they in a place that's not appropriate. I mean, you really need to carry your gun into church? There's a lot of people today who do that. I know some personal people right off the bat don't go anywhere without their pistol because they feel that they I don't know what they think. They think they're going to be John Wayne if shit the truth is, the average person is in a situation of that nature, and if somebody starts shooting off a gun, they're more likely to be running for their life or paralyzed on the spot to even think about going for their own damn gun. And beware the guy that does, the one that just fires from the hip. Because a lot of them, I've got too many associates that have no business packing firearms. They have not even amateur training whatsoever. If you went through the military, you've got significant training. If you went into any branch of the service that involves you using a firearm on a regular basis, you get a lot of training. A lot of training. As a matter of fact, a big chunk of your entire existence sitting in the service is that very thing. Training. Training to do the very thing that you hope you never have to fucking do. Right? It's like some of the mindset for shooting practice and stuff. It's just to get you comfortable with shooting a gun. You know, I remember my dad, or not my dad, but my uncle, who was also a vet. He was a Vietnam vet and a nut. I've plenty of stories about Uncle Buck. He was one of those guys that says, "Look, this is no joke. Don't you take this shit deadly serious, because he'll be dead if you don't." You know. And he's another one of them guys. You point a gun up, when my Uncle Buck was alive in his younger days, if you'd have pointed a gun in his direction, he'd have shoved it up your ass too. He'd have gleefully done it. Yeah, he'd have gleefully done it the whole time. And probably be quoting Bible verses while he was doing it, because that's kind of Uncle Buck. He's a bit of a nut. So, yeah, it's is what it is, America. You know, more of our kids today are killed because of guns than anything else in this country. The next, what is the car accidents is up there. I mean, home accidents and stuff, but firearms, accidental discharges, intentional discharges, the fact that they have access to them. This always goes on, and my wife will go, "Well, it's their parents' fault. They should not have had guns. They should not have been allowed to have guns." Yeah, you're right. They shouldn't have been. So A, they just got them. B, their parents are stupid. C, everybody is deluded in thinking they need it. Yeah. This is just a big and part and parcel problem, and I don't see a cure anytime soon. We lack the national will as a population to insist on serious gun reform and change. The irony is not lost on me that the percentages, the polls say 70% of voting Americans, 70% of Americans believe, regardless of party affiliation, age, gender, freaking racial, ethnic background, they all agree. 70 out of 100. 7 out of 10 people. Most likely several people standing next to you right now, or real close to you, or next door, believe we need to have some sort of gun control that's more effective than what's currently in play. Or we need to enforce the stuff we already have and make make sure it's enforced. But at the end of the day, all the gun safety in the world won't change the fact that Mr. Speaker Johnson's not terribly wrong, and that's what makes his kind of logic so terrible, because there's a lot of truth in the insanity that comes out of that man's mouth. That said, there's a lot of moral problems in this country today too. I've been watching a lot of videos recently on the growing number of teachers who are quitting teaching. And not just in red states, but general. In part, mostly because the children are so disrespectful today. These kids have no controls whatsoever. And, well, this is the parents' fault. You know what? It's easy to blame the parents, but let's blame society for a big chunk of this problem, too. The rampant use of social media on young minds is just corrupted and screwed with them. You got a whole generation of very young people, very cynical. And a lot of them are smarter than, every generation, they tend to be a little smarter than the last generation, because that's kind of by design. And we look at it, and a lot of them at young ages have just realized just how effed up their futures are because of the current system and the way it's set up. And you can point fingers at any one damn thing. The Republicans, we got to get rid of Social Security, got to get rid of Medicare. It's going to bankrupt the country. That's funny, because I just seen a thing earlier today that said between the Bush tax cuts and Trump's tax cuts, it's added $10 trillion to our national debt. So the $33 trillion debt would be a third of what it is if the wealthy and the corporations were paying their fair share of the bills. And not only would they be paying their fair share, because you know what, they do their ever-loving best to pay as little as possible to the American coffers. But meanwhile, have their hands out for ever increasingly bigger government handouts for various projects, entities, and whatever. Funny how that works out. So it's not enough that they they don't even want to pay their bill, but they want a bunch of money from the government in addition to it. And our government just throws money at corporations on a regular basis. It's on the news constantly, dude. I'm not lying about it. You know damn well what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. It's just like I don't believe that. You know what? That's because you're stupid. Stupid or willfully ignorant. You just want to be an argument. There's a whole lot of people out there today on both sides. That's all they want to do is argue. And they don't really, at the end of the day, they have given up hope on anything getting better for themselves. And it makes them cynical and much more likely to say stupid and unthought out things. But just as many of them are thinking from their heart. So it's like I said, sometimes it's better to take everything somebody says with a grain of salt, and then ask yourself, is that possible? So can we control guns? No. Can we mitigate the guns? Yeah, we can mandate how many guns a person. Why does a person need to have 50 guns? How many guns do you need? 10? 50? How many is enough? Should there be a limit to how many guns you should have? Without proper, I don't know. You know what? There's a limit to how many cars you can own. Oh, that's not true. Oh, no. That's very true. Most people live in communities where you're only allowed to have so many vehicles on your property. Your garage, your driveway can only contain so many vehicles. They won't let you park on the street, and they won't let you park in the yard. So that automatically limits how many vehicles you can have in your possession, unless you can afford to have other locations to store them in. So why would you need to have 20 damn guns? Right? Another thing is, why not have background checks for everybody? In-depth background checks. Just maybe, we have to go and get our license. We have to go and get our driver's license renewed every so many damn years. Why is that? Well, they want to check on things. They want to make sure you can still see, you can hear, mostly see, that you still understand what you're seeing. There's a reason that at a certain age in Iowa, after 75 or 80 or something, you have to go every year to the DMV to get your license renewed. They want to make damn sure you're capable of passing the minimums of what you need to do to get it renewed. So God help you, don't let it expire, because you don't want to have to go through all the rigmarole of an actual test and just do the basics. But why not the same with guns? Why not insist on gun license for all guns, and then every gun owner have them to be appropriately licensed and documented and insured? Right? Just asking. Common sense kind of stuff. The other thing of it would be to really start to address the underlying problems that lead to so much of the violence in the first damn place. What's going on? We get it's a lot of mental health issues in this country. A lot of people are under extreme stress, and in part it's because our so screwed up political system today is hell bent on fucking the American population over. Excuse my French. I'm sorry, but that's how I am. But that cost me views, cost me. We're never going to get monetized on this channel, but that's not the point. The point's being direct and honest. For the love of God. This is insane, and it's just going to get worse. And what's it going to take for somebody to mow down somebody in your neighborhood? At the end of the day, it's the American voter that makes the decision on this. But we have to enforce that. What I mean by that is we have to put these politicians on notice that they don't do what we want them to do. We're going to replace them with somebody who will. The downside with that is it could take time, and everything in this country is on a now basis. So anything that has to take a long-term view of things tends to get shunted off to the side and ignored, or because it's not the great dramatic thing at the moment. Our attention spans have gotten so damn tiny, and it's horrible. Anyway, that's me. This is you. Till next time, let's see if I can rotate out of this damn thing. These stupid switches. Don't like them. Come on.